yes. So you are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So anyway, so we will start our. So last class, if you remember, you see, we have done this compression members. Okay, so I have explained you, how do we do the design and other things also. Like you see, some things are required. Like how do you proceed? Like how do we start with initial trial section? Say, so like one way is you assume slenderness ratio. Some thumb rules are there, or you assume the stress, the maximum stress, how much your column can take or something like 0.5 to 0.6 times f of y or slenderness ratio, and then you do the design and you do all these checks. Okay, so these are some guidelines. So for it to be assumed, say for starting a problem, like some guidelines also are there, so you can use this and you can start your problem, or you take your the stress as so 0.5 to 0.6 times f of y, the design stress, and then also you can go ahead and choose a section and you do the routine calculations. Okay, so I have explained you, we have done some some simple problem. So Duggal's book or any steel textbook if you see, say, so there are a lot of problems are there, and of course we also will be giving you an assignment where you can practice some of these problems. Okay, so now other thing also we started last class was this built up sections. Okay, so these are also, the idea is very simple. The idea was your buckling, say it depends on radius of gyration or the moment of inertia. So you, instead of having going for a solid section, you take a section small like channels or angles or whatever, you such that you the spacing and others you arrange in such a way that the slenderness ratio or this r minimum, that radius of gyration increases, and the radius of gyration you can make it same in all the directions also, and you can have a good economical the sections also as which you can use them as a compression member. So this also we said in the last class, and our IS code gives two types. One is a lacing, then other one is a batten columns. Okay, so this also we told you. So two types of things our IS code recommends, and I have already told you, like you see, the spacing decides on your that the moment of inertia should be same on both the sides. So there are, like we told some technical things, like the battens means the plates we call. Then even in the lacing also you have to provide batten plates at the ends. Okay, so but the technical word is a tie plate, but it is same as a battened plate. So this also I showed you, single lacing you can have, double lacing also you can have, and how do we arrange these things, end batten, intermediate batten, so many technical terms are there itself. Okay, so what our IS code recommends to say, so IS code never recommends, you see, the column, these lacings have to be mirror images. Okay, so if you do other way around, then torsion, other kinds of problems come. So these things are not recommended by the code, and even these type of things also, where you mix lacings with battens, say, that becomes very complex. Okay, so a double flat lacing, so these, you see, our code recommends. It is given in even in our IS 800. Okay, so this also I told you the spacing. So this is the most important thing. How do we choose the spacing between these sections? So the idea was you choose the spacing such that Iy is same as Iz actual, so that moment of inertia is same in all the direction, in all the x and y along the major and minimum minor axis, and you will get a economical section. So for channel sections also, I showed you, angle sections also I showed you. It is very easy, you follow, right? If you know the moment of inertia, you equate and then you solve for the spacing. So now for this laced columns, I have also told you the modes of failure. So there are, like you see, one is a global failure, the column fails as a whole, or the local buckling also happens actually between these two. Say the spacing, that also may local buckling may occur, or the lacings may fail actually by buckling, or maybe by, you see, whatever things are there. Then you can have even a distortion also, like you see, initially the shape was perfect like this, but now this distortion, like you see, this type of deformation also may happen. So this is what people have observed in the practice. Okay, now one most important thing I just wanted to mention you here is this built up columns, essentially lacing and these battens columns. See what happens is, because they are not solid sections, right? So because you are the material is not there, okay, in between them or something like that, because we have arranged them in such a position, see what happens is the shear deformation becomes very, very important actually. Okay. So for solid columns, say shear deformation is not so important, and that is perfectly fine. But shear deformation becomes very important for this lacings and batten columns. So that pi square EI by L square, whatever we have studied until now, is not applicable actually. Okay, for lacings and batten columns, because we have not included shear in our calculations. I think all of you know, right? This Euler-Bernoulli beam theory say that m is equal to, you know, that EI you followed, right? D square y by, you know, dx square. You remember what are the basic assumptions behind this formula? That m by I, E by R. You remember that f by I, that formula say. What did you assume in the starting, right? What are the assumptions? See, what are the assumptions in that simple bending formula? Have you, any of you remember? In your mechanics you have studied, right? M by I, that formula.
So beam is isotropic and homogeneous, and the deformation is small.
That is fine, but what are the assumptions? You know, the plane sections. You know, what is that you would write
Plane
there?
sections remain plane.
Not only they remain plane, but one more additional extra thing you have to do. What is that? The plane sections, you know, always remain. So this is my plane cross sections. After deformation, it will be like this. So this is my centroidal axis, say. So my centroidal axis is like this. So now the plane cross sections, you know, always, if I try to find out this angle, say, what will be this angle? See, plane cross sections before and after deformation, say, they always lies. No.
Perpendicular.
No, perpendicular, that means 90 degrees actually. So if you make this assumption, say the 90 degrees, then plane sections remain plane, that's a different issue. But if plane cross sections lie certain, you know, 90 degrees with this one, so what happens is the shear gets cancelled. You know, if you can find out epsilon xx, all the strains is here. So epsilon xy, that, you know, half dou u by dou x minus, you know, some dou v by dou y kind of, or so dou u by dou y minus dou v by dou x, that expression, the shear gets cancelled because of this 90 degrees angle. So you have only one strain in the formula, that is epsilon xx, which you write anyway, you know, that dou u by dou x, and, you know, you can write in terms of all those theta and other things also. So shear deformations are neglected. So only in our Euler-Bernoulli beam theory, say you have only one stress, that is a bending stress, that is nothing but simply sigma xx actually. Okay, so no shear, nothing will happen in this one. That's a pure bending kind of a case. But so that theory is applicable for solid columns, but in reality, you know, right, plane sections, you know, they will not remain at perpendicular, and, you know, all kinds of things are there. Shear deformation also will be there. So the Euler-Bernoulli beam theory say, so the formulas which have been derived, so that is not applicable for built up sections. Okay, like the solid sections, it may be fine, the approximation may be good, but when you are having built up members, the problem, you know, it doesn't have. So once again, you have to rederive the whole buckling theory actually, okay, for built up sections. So, you know, you have two deformations. One is from bending, that is ordinary, this one Euler-Bernoulli, plus you also should have V plus shear deformations also. Okay, so generally we write y is y plus y1 plus y2. So two deformations you have to consider. So in our ordinary theory say, so this shear force thing we neglect actually. Okay, so the equation of equilibrium, you know, this is our d square y by dx square. This is ordinary thing which you have studied Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. Now you have to add one more extra thing which includes this shear deformation also. So yeah, any of you remember how do we introduce shear deformation? What are the alternative theories to Euler-Bernoulli beam theory? See, in mechanics you have studied only pure bending, Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. Do you have any other beam theories where shear deformation also gets included? Have you heard some more beam theory names? So have you heard of Timoshenko beam theory?
No, sir.
What is the Timoshenko beam theory? Now, what does that theory say? So plane cross sections remain plane only, but in Timoshenko beam theory, what happens is plane cross sections will not remain perpendicular. You followed, right? They will remain something like this. So automatically what happens is you will have some shear deformations also will get included. Okay. So there are other beam theories are there where shear deformation also we include. So this also if you include say, so this is my governing equation of equilibrium actual, okay, including shear deformation also. So these are the terms, okay. So this beta some term will be there. So this is like you followed, right, a shear to something like a factor kind of a thing. So if this beta is 0 say, so this entire expression goes down. So you will get ordinary Euler buckling, that Euler's the beam theory itself. But if you have shear deformation also, then this is my equation of equilibrium. So we will not go into details. I'm just informing you. So finally, the buckling load of my column say is given by this expression. So NCR is nothing but pi square EI by L square 1 by 1 plus NCR by SV. So this is the shear the contribution to your this one. So that is given by this GA by beta. G is the shear modulus, A is the area, and beta is something like shape factor or some shear factor or something, you see, which depends on the area. Okay, so that factor will be there. So now our buckling load say, so if we shear, this is very you followed it. So for solid cross sections, what happens is this that the shear thing will be very large actually for solid. Okay, so when this is very large say compared to NCR, so this will be it is in the denominator. So if this is very large, then this term will be small, and obviously 1 plus that finally it boils down to NCR only. But if shear deformation is there, then if shear capacity is less say, then you will have these type of problem. So this is like a graph which shows this versus NCR by SV. So if SV is very high say, so what happens your NCR by SV will be very small, and it collapses to Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. But when it increases say, okay, then that Euler by your load say whatever buckling load also automatically reduces due to the shear the shear thing. So the bearing capacities is largely affected by the shear deformations. Okay, so this is the most important thing, and you can do all the calculations and other things, and because of shear deformations, okay, and is amplified. Already I told you, right, we have some small crookedness will be there, W naught actually. Now you have W naught plus W1 plus W2 also, which comes from shear deformations. Okay, so that is how you see the things like, you see, suppose if we are having a battened column say, okay, so if you draw the load versus deflection, that's a lateral deflection. So this is for the overall the column itself. So we all know there is some small crookedness is that V naught or something, so automatically the column behaves like this. But if you see these individual members say the card 2 or card 1, okay, this portion, so their things will be you followed, right, something like this. And in these batten plates, if you see say the shear deformations will be like this. If you plot with respect to the load, as load goes on increasing, the shear also increases in this batten plates, and this is how the shear deformation you see looks like in the batten columns. Okay, so what I would like to say is so the maximum carrying capacity say, so we have there are some at mid span, okay, the more compressed card buckles, and at the end say the card fails by compression and flexure, and you can have a shear and flexure also will be there in this batten column. So similar thing will be there in the laced columns also. Okay, so what I would like to say is, of course, this derivative you will learn these things in great detail in higher courses, that advanced metal structures, or maybe in the steel structural systems. As far as this course is concerned, I am just showing you this one. So the problem for built up columns is what's the problem of built up column? No. So for built up columns, so what is the most important thing? So what you should understand is you should consider, now what are the two things you have to consider, what extra thing is coming for built up. Now what is the extra thing we are doing for built up columns? You are having two terms. What is the two terms? Now, what are those two? Just now I told you, right? So y1 plus y2. What are the two things? Y1 related to? No.
Y1 is related to bending and Y2 to shear deformation.
Shear deformation. So whatever Euler-Bernoulli beam theory you have studied, so whether it is applicable.
No, it's not applicable.
It is not applicable, so you have to modify, okay, to account for shear deformation. So built up columns, this is the problem, and shear plays a major role. So this is the equation. You can see the buckling load actual. So SV becomes very small, then this term automatically increases, and then because it is in the denominator, say, so automatically your buckling load also increases. So that is the decreases, sorry. So that is why you see this problem appears. Okay. So anyway, so now as far as this course is concerned, you should just remember that shear deformation is very important in the this lacings as well as battens. So this I already explained you in the last class. So that so in the code, say what they do is in the design steps anyway, that problems our TS will explain you. The most important thing what you should do is the slenderness ratio actual. So you can see here the original column slenderness ratio, whatever you have, say for the buckling, so for a laced column you have to take it as 1.05 times actual. Okay, so you are increasing the slenderness ratio. When you increase the slenderness ratio, what happens to the buckling load? Suppose I have a column, its slenderness ratio is KL by R. Now I am increasing the slenderness ratio. What happens to the buckling load? If I increase the slenderness. Now what happens to slenderness ratio if I took the buckling load?
Decreases.
Decreases actually. So why we are decreasing? So for laced columns, why are you increasing the slenderness ratio? Increasing slenderness ratio means you are decreasing the load carrying capacity. So why this extra 5% whatever we are doing, say? So this is to account for
Shear deformation.
shear deformation. Excellent. Okay, so this is the extra thing which you have to do. Okay, so other things are all straightforward. So the design steps are very straightforward for laced and battens. Nothing this one. So and they most of them have come from this one experiments and others. So the design steps are very simple, but only thing is that the design is very lengthy design, because you have to design the member, you have to design the lacing, you have to design all those things. Straightforward steps are given in the code. Just blindly follow the steps, say you will get the design. Only thing is you have to do all rigorously all the steps itself. So this also they do. So A1 by R1 local buckling will be there, so you have to check all the spacings, everything also. Okay, the load also. So all these columns say. So these lacings, so lacings and battens, they are not load carrying members. So they are only you have to design for this shear. So 2.5%, you see. So these numbers have come from experiments. So you have to do the force acting on the columns, and then you have to design all these width, thickness, all straightforward guidelines are provided in the code itself. Okay, so this is how so the batten columns also you can design the type plates. So you have to design as straightforward. Okay, so you have to design like you have to check the safety of the individual members. The safety you have to do. So safety of the members, you have to check the individual, the sections which are like channels. So individual of the individual members you have to check. Then the overall. Then you have to design the lacing bars. Okay. Then the lacing column, the overall column you have to do. You followed. So lacing bars you have to design, then the overall column you have to check, then you have to check the connections, so all those steps are there, so which will be explained by the TS today. Okay, now similarly batten columns. Now batten columns also, now you can see what is effective slenderness ratio of batten columns. It is how much?
1.1 times the normal slenderness ratio.
For lacing, how much it was?
1.05.
0.05. Now it is 1.10. Now what is your comment? Load carrying capacity, you please comment. So ordinary column, if it is here, say, okay, solid column. So lacing will be 1.05 times. You are increasing the slenderness ratio. Somewhere here it will be there. Now for battens, what is happening?
Decreases.
It automatically you followed, right? It goes away. So why this 10%? This extra, why it has come? This is your reason for this is. So if somebody asks you,
Shear deformation.
shear deformation. That is the reason why you are increasing the slenderness ratio. Okay, so theory you will learn later. And now the maximums, so now here the design is, the depth of the batten, overall depth, effective depth of the batten, the spacing between the battens. So if the spacing between the battens is too long, say, then this portion may buckle, local buckling may occur. So you have to choose C, D dash, and all other things you followed, right? You have to do all the checks. So the design is very straightforward. What should be the depth? Everything given is given in the code itself. The spacing, thickness, everything is given. Okay, so straightforward. And here also the battens say. So you have to design for this shear plus bending also, because the batten plates you also will have bending. So the code says you have to check for this one as well as for this the bending moment which comes from the transfer shear, longitudinal shear. So everything has to be designed. Okay, and then finally you have to check these calculation design checks, the shear stress, then the bending stress. Both of them have to be checked in the batten column. So in the lacings there is no bending, but here you will have bending as well as shear also. Okay, so anyway, so I will stop here. So the TSSA, so they will explain you all the design steps by using some examples. Okay. So Meenakshi, you are there? Meenakshi or Jahnavi?
Ha, sir.
So I will
Yes,
unshare. No, so I have unshared. You can share, right?
Yes, sir.
No, so
Hi,
please
everyone.
explain the design steps.
Yes, sir. So hi everyone. So now we are going to see about the built-up column provided with the lacing system. So they have given a design a built-up column with two channels placed back to back of 10 meters long and to carry a factored axial load of 1080 kilonewton. And they have said that the column is restrained in position but not in direction at both ends. And also said we have to provide a single lacing system with bolted connections. They have given steel of grade Fe410 and bolts of grade 4.6. So in the first step, we'll note down all the given details. They have already given Fe410 and bolts of grade 4.6. And in second step, we'll go for the design of column. So they have already given the factored axial load as 1080 kilonewton and the length as 10 meters. So as already sir told, we have either we go by assuming the slenderness ratio or else by assuming the design axial compressive stress. So in this problem, we are assuming the design axial compressive stress as 150 MPa, which is 0.6 times of the Fy. So we'll calculate what is the cross-sectional area required for this the given load. So calculate the value, what is the P by the allowable axial compressive stress, whatever you got, and let us know. Just follow the similar step, whatever I have given, like cross-sectional area is equals to P by allowable axial compressive stress. Then you will get the whatever the cross-sectional area is required.
See here as already, so now the starting point is you have to assume the slenderness ratio or 0.5 to 0.6 times f of y. Okay, so that so slenderness ratio, it is very difficult to assume for these built up sections. So what to do is you assume your design axial compressive stresses as a 0.5 to 0.6 times your f of y. So f of y is 250. So your 0.5 or so this problem say they have assumed it to be around 150. So which is so you can find out the ratio 250 by 150.
0.6.
0.6 times the f of y. That is the first step. So this you have to assume. Slenderness ratio you can't do here because built up columns we don't know the slenderness ratio before it's very difficult because of lacings and others say and shear deformation say it will be difficult. Okay, this is the first step. Proceed.
So now calculate what is the cross-sectional area required with the given details. And let us know whether you have calculated correctly or not. Then we'll go for the next step.
7200 millimeters square.
Yeah. So once you get the cross-sectional area, so we have to choose a member for doing the built-up column. In the next step, we are choosing a member. So here we are selecting ISMC 300. So here the area of each channel section of ISMC 300 is 4564. Since we are providing two channels back to back, the area provided will be 2 times of 4564, which is 9128. which is greater than the 7200 mm square, which we got in the second step. So once if it is not safe, if the 9128 mm square, if it is not, I mean the obtained value, I mean in the step 2 we have provided we got 7200, right? So in the step 3, if you got the lesser area than that, so you can't select that member. You have to select the member in such a way that the area provided should be greater than the area required. So once you get the all the section relevant details, which is available in the IS handbook, so then we'll go for the next step, which is determining the effective slenderness ratio. So as already we discussed, that effective slenderness ratio for the lacing system will be 1.05 times of L by R. We know L. Already we know the relevant properties of the section R, everything. So you calculate these things and let us know what is the slenderness ratio for this given problem. Since the column is restrained in position and free in rotation at both ends, we from the table 10C you will get, from the table 10 you will get the K as 1. So the KL will become L only. So the L will become 10 meters. So 1.05 times of 10 divided by the R will get the effective slenderness ratio.
See, here you are doing a check for the individual members, no?
So calculated. I have attached PPT also, so you can see, open your PPTs in your phone or something, and you can see what are the calculations are there. So the effective slenderness ratio you calculated. Can anybody tell you the value? It's no one.
89.
89, yes. So once you get the slenderness ratio, then you have to find out what is the design compressive stress. From to determine the FCD, we have to go for the table 9C. Since it is a built-up member, it's a buckling class. It comes under the buckling class C. So from the table 9C of IS 800, you will get the FCD. So generally it will be a series of values. So for the obtained slenderness ratio, you have to do interpolation for the given Fy as 250 MPa. You can open your IS code books and you can check in table 9C. So for 89 mm, sorry, 89 slenderness ratio 89, you have to find out what is FCD. They have given for all values like 80, 90. So the values between 80 and 90, it will be 89. No, so you have to do interpolation, and for that you have to get the FCD. So calculate and tell us what is FCD. It will be between 136 to 121, because for 80 and 90 they have given it is 136 and 121. So for 89 it will be between the 136 and 121. So anybody calculated that value?
134.5.
134. No, please check it. Because for 90 they have given 121. No, for 89 it can't be 134. Once recheck it.
$122.5.
Yeah, it is a 122.65. So once you get the FCD, so we'll calculate the design compressive strength, which is given by FCD into A. Which is A is nothing but the area provided. We know the area provided is 9128 and we know FCD as 122.65. So let us know what is the design compressive strength FPD. Just multiply the things and tell us.
$1,118 kilonewton.
Yeah. So you have to check whether the given, the obtained design compressive strength is greater than the given axial load on the column. The given axial load is 1080 kilonewton, which is a factored one. So whatever we got is 1119.5, which is greater than the 1080 kilonewton. So it is safe. If your that criteria it is not satisfied, then you have to go by choosing the another member which have the area greater than the 9128. Then only that criteria will satisfy. So this check you have to make. So whether the PD is greater than the axial load or not, you have to check. In this case, we got 1119.5, which is greater than the 1080 kilonewton. So we'll move to the next step. So everybody got the value of 1119.5 or 1118. Have any problem in calculating FCD? Everybody got the value as 122.5 something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then now we'll move to the next step. In step 5, we'll calculate what is the spacing between the two channels. So in the question they have asked, we have to provide the two channels in such a way they are back to back and we have to provide them with the lacing flats. So as we already know, they have given for how to determine the channel spacing with this formula. All the relevant properties of the section or we know like what is IZ, IY, CYY, area, everything. So using this formula, we'll calculate what is the spacing. So I will show you the material properties, section properties. You can write it down. IZ, IY, CYY, area. Then you can go for the formula calculation. You have noted down? Shall I show you the formula?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So once you calculate, once you noted down all the details, then you just calculate what is the spacing of channels using this formula. Just substitute it and just get it what is S. Anybody calculated the value?
115.6.
115.6. No, please check it now once. Calculated, yes.
For area, we have to take area of one section or for the both combined.
Area of one section you have to take. Already they have given 2 times of that, no?
Okay, ma'am.
Here 2 times of iz is 2 times of the, already they have mentioned 2 times. So you have to give for what is area. It is will be around 4564, I guess. 9128 divided by 2, right? You have to calculate a bit faster.
183.
Yes, so spacing will be 183.5 mm. So once we get the spacing of channels, we'll go for the design of lacing system. So from the clause 7.6.4, it is known that the lacing bars should be provided between an angle of 40 to 70. So in this question, we'll assume it as a 45 degrees. So now we'll calculate what is the spacing of the lacing bars. Here you can see in the figure, A1 is the spacing of lacing bars. They have given that A1 should be 2 times of spacing plus 2 times of gauge distance into cot 45. So gauge distance is 50 mm. It is already given in the section properties. So you have to calculate what is A1. Spacing you got it in the 5th step. You know what is G now. So you calculate what is A1.
Over 46.2.
Okay. Once you get it, you determine whether that is divided by Ry is less than 50 or not, and also check whether it is less than 0.7 times the effective slenderness ratio of the column. We already know the effective slenderness ratio of the column as 89 mm. So check whether A1 by Ry is less than 50 and less than 0.7 times the 89 or not. Whether it satisfies the 2 criteria, will go for the next step. What is the maximum shear acting on the lacing?
Can you once again show the properties to see the RY?
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody calculated A1? Sorry. Shall we move to the next part?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So maximum shear acting on the lacing from the clause 7.6.1, it is given as 2.5% of the axial force in the column. We already know the axial force in the column is given as 1080 kilonewton. So the maximum shear acting on the lacing will be 2.5% of the 1080 kilonewton. What it will be?
$27.
Yes. So once the maximum shear you calculate, then we have to calculate what is the transverse shear acting on each panel. it is given by Vt by N. You can see in the figure, the transverse shear is Vt by N. Here the N is nothing but the shear resisting elements. For here we are providing two channels laced on both faces, right? So the N will become 2. If the 4 angles laced on all faces is also, the N will become 2. So the transverse shear on each panel will become Vt by N. We already know what is Vt from the previous step, the maximum shear acting on the lacing. The N will become 2. So the Vs will become 27 by 2. Understood, right? So we can move to the determining the compressive force in the lacing bars. Everybody got transverse shear as 13.5?
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll go for determining the compressive force in lacing bars. It is given by Vt by N into cosecant theta. We already know what is Vt, we know what is N, and theta is 45. We'll calculate Vt by N into cosecant theta, which is nothing but the compressive force in the lacing bars. Yeah, so it will be 19.09 kilonewton. So once you calculate all the design forces acting on the lacing system, now we'll go by designing what is the width, the thickness, and the length of the lacing flat. So first, in order to determine the depth, width and the thickness, we have to first assume the diameter of the bolt. Here I am assuming the 16 mm dia bolt for this question. So the width will become the three times, it should be greater than the 3 times of the nominal diameter. So since it is a 16 mm, the width will become greater than the 3 times of the 16 mm diameter. What it will be? So width will become, should be greater than 48 mm. So we assume that width is the 50 mm. Understood why it is 50 mm? The minimum flat width should not be less than the 3 times the nominal diameter of the end connector. So here we are providing the 16 mm dia bolt. So the width will be greater than the 3 times of the nominal dia, which is 16 mm. So it will be W should be greater than 48 mm. So assume it as W as 50 mm. So once you calculate the width, we'll go for the thickness. So they have given for the single lacing system, the thickness of the lacing flat should not be less than 1 by 40 times of its effective length. Whereas for double lacing, it should be 1 by 60 of its effective length. So the effective length is nothing but the length of the flat between the inner end bolts, which is given by S plus 2G into cosecant 45. So once you determine what is the length of the flat, then you have to determine T should be greater than 1 by 40 times of the S plus 2G into cosecant 45. First determine what is the length of the flat between inner end bolts. You know already spacing, which is 183.5 mm. G you know 50 mm. So you just substitute all the details and let us know what is the length of the flat you got.
287.79 mm.
Okay, so once you get the length of the flat, you multiply with the 1 by 40 and let us know what is thickness you got. It should be greater than the whatever value you got. In the question they have asked single lacing system. So we are providing 1 by 40 times of the effective length.
Effective length by 40 is 7.19.
It should be greater than that. You got it, what 7.9? Please check it once. No? Maybe some mistake you have done in the effective length. It is s plus 2g into cosecant 45, right? You will get t as 12 mm. So when you calculate, you will get 10 around 10 mm. So greater than that we have to provide. So we'll take it as a 12 mm. So we are providing a flat section of 50 ISO of 12 mm. So width is 50 and the thickness is 12 mm. So we'll move to the next step. We'll calculate what is the minimum radius of gyration for the lacing flat, which is given by t by root 12. We know the T we have provided as 12 mm. So you tell me what is the minimum radius of gyration.
Three point
Three
four
point four
six.
six.
Yes, 3.4 mm. So once this step completed, next we'll go to the next step, which is we have to determine the slenderness ratio. We already know the slenderness ratio is nothing but L by R. So L is nothing but the effective length. We already know the length of the flat between the inner and bolts. You have already calculated, divided by R minimum, which you have calculated as 3.4. Now determine what is the slenderness ratio.
It is 3.17.
No, please check it. What is the effective length you got? Spacing is 183.5, right? G is 50, means 183.5 plus 100 into cosecant 45. You will get effective length around
400.
Can you please check it? You will get the slenderness ratio as 115. Since the slenderness ratio for the lacing system should be less than 145, whatever we got will be less. So then we'll move for the whatever we got 115 L by R, will determine what is the FCD. Similar pattern how we have followed in step 2 and step 3. Okay, so in the previous thing, this is the effective length. No, so in this slenderness ratio, the L means 183.5 plus 2 times of 50. There is no into cosecant 45. Here the length of the flat between inner bolt length means this length. Here the slenderness ratio, it will be 183.5 plus 2 times of 50 divided by 3.4, which will be 115.72 mm. So for that, determine what is FCD. Anybody calculated what is FCD? Calculated FCD. Using same table 9C only you have to calculate. Somebody calculated the length of the. Can anybody tell what is the length of the flat you got? Effective length of the flat using this formula, whatever the value you got. Somebody said 400, right?
Yes, ma'am. 400.86.
Yeah, okay. So, what is the value of slenderness ratio you got?
115.7.
Yeah, that is right. So, effective length divided by the R, 3.464 something. You will get 115.72. Anybody have doubt in this? See, the effective length is nothing but this s plus 2g into cosecant 45, which will be 400. So it's divided by the r min, which is nothing but t by root 12, which you got as 3.464. So from that you will get as 115.7 mm. Sorry, there is no units. So for 115, you have to calculate what is FCD. Using the table
89.2.
Okay. So once you calculate FCD, you have to calculate what is the design compressive strength. So FCD multiplied by A. Here we are providing 50 mm width and 12 mm thickness. So what is the design compressive strength you got? Calculated FCD into area. Area is nothing but 50 into 12. FCD you know already 89 mm Newton per mm square. So what is the design compressive strength?
53 kilonewton.
Yes, 53 kilonewton. So the compressive force acting on each lacing bar we got as a 19.09 kilonewton in the previous steps. You remember? In the step 6 of fourth part, we got as Vt by n cosecant theta, we got as 19.9. So the design compressive strength of the lacing we got as 53, which is greater than the 19 kilonewton. So it is safe. So once if it is not safe, then you have to increase the width and the thickness of the lacing flat, whatever you have provided. Since in this question we got safe, we'll move to the next part. So we have to determine what is the tensile strength of flat. Here we'll check whether the tensile strength of flat is greater than the compressive force acting on the lacing bar. So we already know, we have already determined what is the cross section yielding rupture of critical section in tension members. You already know how to calculate it. You calculate what is TDG and TDN. First calculate cross section yielding TDG. You know AG, you know Fy, you know gamma m naught. So you tell me what is the strength due to the yielding of cross section. Completed? Cross section yielding.
Gamma m naught is 1.1 or 1.25.
1.1. You have already used it in the last classes, right? The partial safety factor for failure in tension for yielding. You can see it in table 5. It is 1.1. Fi you already know 250 MPa. You know what is Ag. Tell me what is the design strength of the member under yielding of cross section.
136.36 kilonewton.
Yes. So once you completed cross section, you will calculate what is the rupture of critical section. You know already TDN is 0.9 into AN into FU divided by gamma M1. You know the net effective area will be B minus DH into T. Here we have used 16 mm diameter bolts, no? So the DH will be 18 mm. B you already know, T you know. So you calculate AN. Once substitute AN into TDN, you will get a rupture of critical section. Tell me what is its design strength due to that.
Hundred and 13.35.
Yes. So the least of that both the things will be 113.35, which will be greater than the compressive force acting on the lacing, which is 19 kilonewton. So since it is safe, we'll go to the next step. We'll go for design of the connections. Since we are providing the bolted connections, we have to determine the strength of the bolt and the number of bolts. So we know the strength of bolt, how to calculate shear capacity, bearing capacity, like you have already solved in the first tutorials. You calculate what is the shear and bearing capacity of the bolt of 16 mm dia. You know what is pitch 2.5 times D, edge distance 1.5 times of DH. All things you substitute and calculate what is the strength of the bolt in shear and bearing. Take the minimum of the bolt, we'll get the design strength of the bolt. Here one question may arise whether we have to consider it as a double shear or single shear. See, in this figure, if you see, the bolts are provided in one pattern. Here, it will become like a single shear. If it is not, like if the two lacing flats are provided with the one common bolt, then it will become the double shear. So you have to write it like in which way you are providing the lacing, and based on that you have to calculate what is the shear strength. If you are providing like this, whatever shown in figure, then it will become the single shear. Anybody calculated what is the strength of the bolt in shear and bearing? What is its shear capacity? Anybody calculated shear capacity? So you calculate in the meantime what is the shear and bearing capacity. So once you get the shear and bearing capacity, then you have to take the minimum of that, which will give the design strength of the bolt. So once you get the design strength of bolt, we have to calculate what is the force on bolt from each flat. So it is giving that Vt by n into cosecant theta is the one force acting on the bolt. So to get the number of bolts required, we have to do like force on bolt from each flat divided by the what is the design strength of the bolt. From that you will get number of bolts required. You understood this step? You can calculate the strength of bolt later, but you understood how to do that? How to go through the number of bolts required, how to calculate that? I'll once again explain. The strength of the bolt we have to calculate based on the minimum strength of the shear and bearing capacity. Once you calculate that, you have to calculate what is the force acting on bolt from the flat, which is given by Vt by n into cosecant theta. You already know what is Vt, n and theta and all. So once you calculate the force on bolt from each flat, then what is the number of bolts required you can calculate by dividing the force on bolt from the flat to the design strength of the bolt. So once you calculate the number of bolts and what is the diameter, pitch, edge distance, then connection of the connection of the bolt will be the design, everything will be completed. Now we'll go for the design of the tie plate. So when we are going for the tie plate, the entire design is provided in 7.6.8. This tie plate will design as a batten itself. So the effective depth will be spacing plus 2 times of CYY. We already know CYY. We got spacing as 183.5 mm. And to get the overall depth, you have to do effective depth plus 2 times of the edge distance. Edge distance is nothing but 1.5 times of the DH, which is 1.5 times of the 18 mm. So the thickness will be 1 by 50 of 183.5 plus 2 times of 50. And the length will become 183.5 plus 2 times of BF. So BF is 90 mm for the ISMC 300. So by substituting all these things, you will get depth, effective depth, overall depth, thickness and length of the tie plate. Understood? Step 9 and 10. If you have any problem, please ask. Have any questions? In any step of the design, if you have any questions, if you are facing in calculating, you can ask.
See, I think the time is almost over, Meenakshi.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll close here. So I hope all of you know, right? Next week we'll be having no classes. Okay, so Dean has sent email, so we will continue. You follow, right, after that weekend. Okay, after the next week. So anyway, so enjoy your holidays, right? 1 week holidays, you please all of you enjoy, and we will be sending some assignments. Okay, compression members and others. So all of you, you take time and then submit. We will give you sufficient time. Okay.
And you can solve this